scent of cardamom and browning butter was the only thing that felt real anymore. For 30 years, it had been my alarm clock, my comfort, my wife. When my darling Clara passed 5 years ago, that scent was all I had left of her. She wasn't just a baker. She was an artist, and the Hearthstone Bakery was her masterpiece, our masterpiece. We'd built it from splintered floors and a prayer, pouring every cent we had into its warm brick heart. Now it was mine to protect. My son Mark never understood the bakery. To him, it was just bricks and flour. He saw the world through the cold digital glow of a smartphone screen, always chasing the next disruptive idea. His ideas always seemed to disrupt my bank account more than any industry. First, it was the artisanal water subscription box. Then, the app for rating local squirrels. Each failure was cushioned by a call to me, his voice slick with manufactured optimism. "Dad, I just need a small bridge loan. This next one is the one. I can feel it." I always provided the bridge. What else could a father do? Clara had always said, "Be patient with him, Arthur. He's just finding his way." But since Mark brought her home, the patience had worn thin. Her name was Serena. She had a face like a porcelain doll and a spine of polished steel. She appraised our family home not with warmth, but with the cool, calculating gaze of an auctioneer. She didn't smell the history. She smelled the property value. "Arthur, you're sitting on a gold mine," she'd said last Sunday, swirling a glass of wine I'd paid for. "This neighborhood is exploding. You could sell this house and the bakery. You'd be a multimillionaire. We'd be set for life. The bakery is your mother's legacy, Mark," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "It's not for sale." "Legacy? Dad, it's a building," Mark scoffed, echoing Serena's thoughts. "It's old. It's dusty. We could take that money and build a real brand, an international one. Think bigger." "I am thinking bigger, Mark. I'm thinking about your mother, about community, about the people who have come to the Hearthstone for every birthday and anniversary for 30 years. It's not just a building. It's a memory." Serena placed her hand on Mark's arm. "But, darling, memories don't pay for a beachfront condo." "Arthur, be reasonable. You're not getting any younger. You should be enjoying your retirement, not waking up at 4 a.m. to bake bread." They didn't get it. Waking up at 4 a.m. was what kept me sane. It was my last remaining ritual, my connection to Clara. The thought of selling it felt like burying her all over again. The final confrontation came a week later. It was the anniversary of Clara's passing. I was planning a small memorial at the bakery, offering her signature rosewater and pistachio kisses, for free, just as she used to do on our anniversary. It was a day of quiet remembrance. Mark and Serena arrived unannounced in the middle of the afternoon rush. They weren't dressed for a memorial. They were dressed for war. "Dad, we need to talk now," Mark said, bypassing the line of customers. "Mark, I'm busy. People are here to honor your mother." "They're here for free cookies," Serena sneered, picking a piece of lint from her black cashmere sweater. "Mark, just tell him." "Dad," Mark said, his voice taking on a hard edge I'd never heard before, "we found a developer. He's offering 8 figures for this corner lot, the house and the bakery. It's an insane offer. We have the paperwork." "I told you." "No, you don't get it, do you?" Mark's face flushed. "It's not a request. I'm your son. That money is my inheritance. Why should I have to wait until you're dead to get what's mine?" The words hung in the air, thick and toxic. The chatter in the bakery died. My loyal assistant manager, Maria, who had worked for us since she was 16, looked like she'd been struck. "What is yours?" I said, my voice dangerously low, "is what you earn. What I have, I built with your mother. It is not a piggy bank for your failed schemes and your girlfriend's wardrobe." Serena stepped forward. "You old fool. You'd rather cling to this dump than see your own son succeed. You're selfish." "Selfish?" I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "I funded 4 of his companies. I paid off his sports car. I paid for the vacation you two just took to Bali. You stand there, dripping in designer labels I paid for, and call me selfish. Get out. Both of you. Get out of my wife's bakery." Mark looked stunned. I had never, not once, raised my voice to him. "You'll regret this, old man," he hissed, his face pale with rage. "No," I said, turning back to my counter. "I regret not doing this sooner." They left. The bakery door slammed, rattling the old brass bell. Maria tried to busy herself, but her hands were shaking. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach, a feeling that this was not the end. It was the end. I returned to the bakery the next morning at my usual 4 a.m. The dread had kept me awake all night. The street was dark and silent. I fumbled for my keys, but the front door was already ajar. My heart stopped. I pushed it open. The smell of cardamom and butter was gone. It was replaced by the acrid chemical stench of vinegar and bleach. They had been methodical. Every bag of flour was slashed open, the white powder coating the floor like a bitter snow. Eggs were smashed, sugar poured into the sticky tiled floor. The new espresso machine I'd saved for a year to buy had been shattered with a hammer. But that wasn't the worst of it. On the main counter, where I did all my work, was Clara's recipe book. It was a thick, leather-bound volume, its pages softened and stained with 30 years of vanilla, chocolate, and love. It was the only one. Clara wrote everything in it, in her beautiful, looping cursive. It was, in every sense, the soul of the hearthstone. It was drenched, soaked through with what smelled like red wine and cleaning fluid. The ink had bled, turning 30 years of mastery into a pulpy, purple-black soup. The pages were fused together, destroyed beyond any hope of recovery. I fell to my knees. I didn't make a sound. I just knelt in the flour and the broken eggs, my hand hovering over the pulped remains of my wife's life. They hadn't just vandalized a shop. They had desecrated a tomb. They had murdered her all over again. And then I saw it. Above the counter, there had always been a small, simple oil painting of Clara, done by a local artist when we first opened. It wasn't valuable to anyone but me. It was gone. The wall was bare, save for a single, empty nail. They hadn't just come to destroy. They had come to steal. A new feeling pushed through the grief. It was cold, clear, and absolute. It was the feeling of a lock clicking into place. The patience Clara had asked for was gone. The bridge I had provided for my son was now finally burned. I did not call the police. That would be a family drama. I did not want drama. I wanted a conclusion. I spent the morning cleaning up. I threw away the ruined book. I scrubbed the floors. By 9 a.m., the bakery was clean, but it was empty, silent. The heart had stopped beating. I put a closed for renovation sign on the door. Then I went to see my lawyer. "Arthur, this is horrific," my lawyer David said after I explained the situation. "We should file a police report immediately." "No, David," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "I don't want them punished. I want them erased. I want to finalize my estate." David looked at me. "Arthur, Mark is your only son. That is a biological fact, nothing more," I said. "I want to sell the bakery." David's eyebrows shot up. "The developer? You're taking the offer?" "No. I want to sell the Hearthstone Bakery, its name, its equipment, and the building, to Maria Sanchez." "Your assistant?" David was confused. "Arthur, she can't afford. I want to sell it to her for $1. David sat back, stunned. $1? The property alone is worth millions. I know what it's worth. Maria loved Clara. She learned every recipe. She still has half of them memorized. The bakery was Clara's soul, and Maria is the only one I trust to protect it. Draw up the papers, an ironclad sale." Okay. And the house? Your retirement accounts? Your stocks?" "Everything," I said. "I want to liquidate everything. The stocks, the bonds, the retirement funds, all of it." "And the proceeds?" "We are going to create the Clara Hartman Grant for Culinary Arts at the local community college. A full-ride scholarship for aspiring bakers. It will be managed by the college in perpetuity. I wanted to help people who have passion but no resources, the kind of people Mark and Serena look down on." David was scribbling furiously. "And Mark?" "Your will. We have to leave him something, or he can contest it." I thought for a moment. I thought about the empty nail on the wall. Yes, the painting of Clara. I had it appraised for insurance years ago. It's worth $5,000. I want to bequeath to my son Mark the sum of $5,000, the value of the last item he stole from me, and not 1 cent more. The next 2 weeks were a blur of paperwork. I signed away a lifetime of accumulated wealth. I signed away the house. I signed away the stocks. The only thing I kept was my car and a small savings account, enough to live on. The last thing I did was visit Maria. I gave her the keys and the signed deed. When she saw the document, she burst into tears, thinking it was a mistake. "It's not a mistake, Maria," I told her, placing my hand on hers. "It's not a gift. It's a responsibility. Just keep baking her kisses." She hugged me, sobbing into my shoulder. "I will, Arthur. I promise. I will." 2 days later, a registered letter was delivered to Mark's luxury high-rise apartment. I imagined the scene. I imagined him seeing the lawyer's letterhead, thinking I had caved, thinking I was ready to sell. Inside, there were 2 documents. The first was a formal notice that his inheritance had been revised. It would have detailed his $5,000 bequest. The second was a notice of sale, showing that the property at 412 Evergreen Street, housing the Hearthstone Bakery, had been sold for the sum of $1. My phone rang 30 seconds later. I looked at the screen. Mark. I let it ring and ring and ring. It rang 47 times that day. A week later, I was driving. I drove until the skyscrapers and the traffic faded into green hills, and then, finally, into the bright, endless blue of the ocean. I found a small, rented cottage on a cliff, a place where the only sound was the wind and the gulls. I received one final text message from Mark. It was not a long, rambling paragraph. It was just 5 words. How could you do this? I thought about the ruined recipe book. I thought about the chemical smell and the empty nail on the wall. I thought about 30 years of entitlement, of bridges built and bridges burned. I turned off my phone. I walked out onto the small porch. The air was cool and salty. It didn't smell like cardamom or browning butter. It smelled like the future. It smelled like peace. And for the first time in a very long time,